Hi everyone, my name's Chris Mumford. Really excited to be presenting with you this morning. I'm calling in from Akixi, and today we'll be looking through CX analytics and call recording, but more importantly, how we can use them to unlock more value from Microsoft Teams voice solutions. Just a quick introduction to myself. As I said, my name's Chris Mumford. I'm one of the business development managers here at Akixi. I'm really excited to be partnering with Sippio and being able to demonstrate what you guys have access to you within the portfolio. So this session really will be aimed at kind of two audiences here. So first and foremost, for the service providers listening, understanding what you've got access to within the Sippio portfolio, but also for the end customers that are tuning in, being aware of what's available to you and how you can leverage both CX analytics as well as call recording within the Microsoft Teams environment to get the most value out of your investments and existing solutions. So without further ado, I think it would be great just to present really who Akixi are in case you aren't already familiar with us. So in short, we've got one simple mission, and that is to deliver customer experience focused value added services solutions for cloud communication service providers. We've got over 100 global service provider partners, and we're really excited to be partnering with Sippio and by extension, all of the Sippio partner ecosystem and therefore their end customers. Just to give you guys a little bit of peace of mind, we have been in this area of expertise for some time with over 10,000 end users currently using our systems, as well as 1 million end users. Just on the left-hand side, one thing that's really cool about Akixi specifically is we're geared up to really meet any end user requirement. So you can see there anywhere from SME level all the way up to enterprise level, and all of those gaps in between we can absolutely fulfill. The first product I really wanted to introduce to you guys today was the call recording piece, and just high level where we're seeing Akixi's call recording winning in market. The first one, and one of the most pertinent really, because it's quite difficult to ascertain, is the fact that our call recording solution is in fact Microsoft certified. And there is a lot that goes into happening to make that a reality. And as a result of being a Microsoft certified solution, it means as end users, you can feel comfortable that you're not going to have any issues with, let's say, a Microsoft update in the future, because as a certified solution, we gain access to the Microsoft roadmap and we can ensure that our solution aligns with future roadmap items. As well as being Microsoft certified, especially within the call recording space, there's a lot of certifications that you need for certain use cases that we absolutely adhere to. So there's a whole host of compliances that we can adhere to. I won't list them off, but the reality is if you're within a bespoke industry that needs a certain certification or need to meet a certain level of compliance, you can rest easy knowing that our call recording solution will absolutely have you covered. And then just on kind of how we're deploying and storing call recording, because it's somewhat unique to our solution. So much like other solutions in the market, we're secure and scalable with a cloud deployment method. But there's kind of two things to be aware when we're looking at this, and it gets into the whole being fast and flexible within this cloud environment. So first and foremost, one thing to note is being cloud, we can get you up and running with little to no disruption very quickly. But then the key thing, especially with call recording as a solution, is how you actually store that information and store that data. So there's one of two ways in which you can store your data through ourselves. So the first one is we can absolutely host the storage for you for however long you may wish to store that for. And what's great about us hosting it is we do have 256-bit encryption. So what that means is, in short, you can compress the data to a level in which you can store a lot of data, a lot of call recordings, whilst not taking up as much data as with a worse level of encryption. But also because it's hosted, we have access to servers all over the globe. So dependent on where you need that storage to be, we can absolutely be flexible in helping you with that. But alternatively, if you wanted to store it yourselves, if you have your own blob storage that you wish to bring, we can absolutely let you do that. It's completely up to you. We're not pressured. We're not precious at all in that respect. Then the other thing to note is we're completely telephony platform agnostic. So this is a Microsoft Teams solution, but however the Microsoft Teams solution is delivered is irrelevant to us. So as long as you've got calls going through Microsoft Teams, however that looks, we can absolutely record that. And then the call recording scope, it not only captures Teams audio and video, it also captures PSTN and meetings. But we are flexible with that. So you can limit scopes to certain users. You may have certain users who solely want to use Teams audio, but then you may want to include video recording for other users. Unfortunately, just because of time today, I won't have an opportunity to demonstrate the call recording piece. But if you are looking to see a little bit more hands-on about the call recording piece, please reach out to, if you're a customer, your service provider managing the service, or alternatively, feel free to reach out to the Sippio account managers and we can absolutely set something up to give you a little bit more of a hands-on feel. But what I want to move on to is the Akixi call analytics piece. And what's really exciting for us is the fact that we've developed the only analytics piece for Microsoft Teams in market that has true real time. And there is a lot of analytics players in market who claim to be real time. What we've seen in market is they rely on Graph API. So when you use Graph API to poll data, unfortunately, we've seen it tested in market of upwards of 30 minutes. And when you as a business need to make decisions proactively as opposed to reactively, you absolutely need data in real time. We were able to achieve that by developing our own Akixi proprietary bot system that ties in with the tenant, which allows it to connect and read events as they happen. Another cool thing about Akixi is we've got a native app experience all within Teams. I will give you the demonstration because that is very much a visual thing, but it's really all about having that customer experience, making it easy to transition between your call analytics platform and your Teams environment. The next two things really come hand in hand with one another, but one of our key USPs is the fact that we've got well over 300 metrics available. The reality is, if you want to configure something bespoke to your own environment, that is absolutely something you can achieve. And because of that level of configurability, we like to pride ourselves on the ability to report on vertical specifics. So again, if you are within a specific vertical, we can absolutely accommodate your reporting requirements. And the reality is, of course, we've got key verticals we operate in. So I'm talking your hospitalities, your legals, your finance, your healthcares, your motor, anything like that. The reality is, if you rely on calls within a business, we can absolutely accommodate it. And there is absolutely a use for Akixi's call analytics. And then one for the service providers as well as the end customers. We've got a 5-step provisioning process. So it really is smooth to set up with little to no disruptions to end customers' environments. The reality is, within 5 clicks, we can have a customer set up on Akixi Analytics. Without further ado, I just want to jump into the demonstration so you can see it hands-on. So you now see here that I've loaded up the Akixi Analytics environment native to Microsoft Teams. So the first thing you will note in here is we're living here natively on the left-hand side as a Teams application. So again, it just puts into practice the fact that we're easy to access. It's a seamless experience navigating from your calls, your calendar, whatever that looks like, into the native Akixi environment. Everything I'm about to show you is what we call the out-of-the-box reports. So these are pre-canned, ready to set up. So there's little to no difficulty in getting these set up at all because they already come out of the box. So it's just a case of familiarizing yourself with them. One thing to note is there are two main types of licenses for you guys to be aware of. So the first one is what we call an advanced user, and that's the view that I'm about to show you today. So that's for management level users, so those who need to view the data, report on the members of staff below them, and also customize and configure all of the reports you see. And then, of course, there is a separate license for extensions only for users who need to be reported on. That license is broken into two subsets of license for if you need real time, or alternatively, you may just want to look at historical only data. But the first thing I wanted to demonstrate to yourself is the real-time capability. But before I put a call into the environment, what you'll see is we've got this as an example of a dashboard. So a dashboard is when you've got more than one report nested into one main report. Other reports that exist that I'll show you is our standardized reports as well as our wallboards, but I'll go on to that shortly. But if I just start by taking my mobile and putting a call into the Akixi environment. So let me just put that call in now. So what you will have noticed there, the Akixi environment actually picked this up before the Teams client did. True testament. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to edit this call. That will bring this report on the right to life. So if you just think for this report as a business case, there's a whole host of different reasons you may use this. But the most pertinent one we see in market is when telephone calls have a tangible value. So take an example, and appreciate this is kind of worst case scenario. But if I was a car dealership and that customer was calling in for a brand new car, that call could be potentially worth $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 upwards. Using this report, you can manage these missed calls, stay on top of them, and potentially make a whole host more money just using this report alone. But it doesn't stop there. Just to show additional value within this report, if I was to then go onto my team's environment, return this missed call, so I'll make that call out. Now that that call is answered, I can go back into the Akixi environment. Just let that load up. And what you'll see here now is that red call has now turned to green. This ensures that we have now returned that call, and shortly after, the green report will update and be removed from this report. Other things to note while we're in this what's happening now dashboard, on the left hand side, you can see that we've now got an active call that's tracking second for second. And now because I'm on a call, my status has now changed to being in a busy state. But if I just hang up this call and move on to the rest of the demonstration. But while I'm here, you'll see that my status also changed in real time. This isn't just calling status. It can also take it from your team status. So if I simply just wanted to say I was busy, in real time, it changes back to available. You can understand how this may look. But if I just proceed to some of the other reports available within the Akixi environment, we've got a standardized extension and device report. So where we see this used traditionally is potentially in, let's say, a sales team or a customer service environment where you need to monitor the individual activity of your team. So you'll see here that there's a list of metrics along the top. I'll get onto that very shortly, but I think a good place to start here is this toolbar along the top, which is true across all of the reports. This is a way in which you can quickly configure any report you see within the environment. So the first one in the top right, all of my reports are set in real time for this demonstration, but you can change it to any customizable time range. So you may want to look at this data retrospectively. You can change how this data is presented on screen. Of course, you've got a traditional zoom level. You've got a device filter. So for example, rather than clicking each individual you wanted to report on, I've had the sales queue group synced from the Microsoft Teams environment. So I can simply click that button and then it automatically syncs everyone within that sales team. But you can use this filter to pick what devices you wish to be reported on. You can also download this via CSV, XLS, PDF, and RTF. It's worth noting some end users use our API as well to plug us into Power BI. And then the most powerful aspect on the toolbar is this configuration in the top left-hand side. So this is where we start to change the reports and model them to how we want them to look like. So if you take these metrics along the top, let's say I wasn't quite happy with them, I could go into this toolbar. If I go down to the field section, you'll see from top to bottom, that's how they're listed left to right. Let's say I wasn't happy with one of these metrics, I could highlight it and click remove. Or alternatively, let's say I wanted to add more metrics. You click the plus button and you'll see a whole host of options available to you. As we mentioned earlier, there's well over 300 metrics. In the interest of time, I won't go through them all. The reality is, if you think of something you want to be reported on, you will absolutely find it within these fields here. Other thing that's worth noting, you can schedule all of these reports. So you may want it scheduled on the Friday at 5 o'clock every week, but that can be completely flexible to however you want that scheduled. But without further ado, I'll move on to the next report. Much like the extension and device report, we can report on groups and queues. So very similar in the way it reports on the extension and device report level, but this is a much higher view. So a use case for this is, let's say you want to compare teams or even compare regional branches. So for example, you may have a manager who looks after the West region, you may have a manager who looks over the North region, and you want to compare how those branches are doing in comparison to one another. It's also worth noting you can lock permission scopes to a regional manager, for example, so they can only see data for the branches that they're responsible for. But I won't over rotate on this too much. Very similar to the extension and device report, but on a group/queue level. If you did want to look at specific agents in more detail, we do have what we call the agent availability report. This is a way in which you can see the specific statuses of your active agents and how long they've been in said status for. So for example, you can see my name, Chris Mumford here. Again, if I was to change my status, because I'm currently showing as being in this state for just over 4 minutes, if I was to change it to busy, in real time, it would change down here, update how long I've been up in the status for. And then once I've changed this status, it will then reflect these fields on the right and populate them accordingly. But if I just quickly put myself back to available, this is a great way of just monitoring agent availability and making sure that they're committing the right hours to specific tasks. For example, you may want to look at maybe specific agents are taking a longer break, for example, or maybe they keep going away from their desk as remote workers. This is a great way of identifying that. The next report is an example of all call activity. And this is probably our most powerful report within the Akixi environment. So at the moment, this is showing each and every call that's come into the environment. We can break this down to individuals or potentially look at a specific phone number that keeps calling in. But what's unique about this report, and you'll see here the segment piece, we model every single aspect of the call journey from start to finish. And on each call event, a segment is created. So you'll see here we've got 3 of 3 segments, which means there's been 3 courses of a call journey. A use case for this is, let's say you've got a customer who's been calling in and keeps saying, I've been past pillar to post, and unfortunately not being able to get through to anyone. We can take that call, use this report, and start modeling that call journey from start to finish. So if we go into it, what I'll do is I'll jump to the start of the report. So if I go all the way to the beginning, you will see when the call started. You can see who was calling. So it was one of my colleagues, Rob Fitter, and he made the decision to call into the sales queue. Within the sales queue, Colin was offered the call, but unfortunately, Colin didn't answer, and therefore it advanced. You can also see how long each of these call events lasted. This then generates a next segment. So if I'm then looking further on this, you can see that it was then offered to John Denny. Unfortunately, John didn't answer, and as a result, it advanced once again. Ultimately, no one ended up answering the call, and as a result of it, the call was abandoned. But as you see, there's a whole host of information. You can really get granular detail on each specific leg of the call to identify either A, whether members of staff didn't deal with the call appropriately, or alternatively, there may be a call flow issue. The next report, I'm sure it's something you've all seen at some point, a traditional wallboard. I won't go into too much detail on this, but again, much like all of our reports, this is real time. So I've just been picked up for the Teams client, and now I'm generating the longest waiting now per second. I'll just hang that call up. Much like all of our other reports, if you weren't happy with these tiles, you can absolutely change and configure them. The next report that's worth looking at is more about operational and insight type reports. So here we've got an example of a calls by half an hour interval. So this is just a breakdown of each half an hour of the calling day and peaks and troughs of call activity. So where these sort of reports are really useful is operational side. So let's say you've got a peak of calls, and more importantly, a peak of abandoned calls. You may make a decision to start allocating more staff at specific periods, or alternatively sending, like, let's say, less on a lunch break at a specific time. But you can see how it correlates on a half hour by half hour basis, much like the calls by half an hour. You can also see this on a day of the week basis. Again, just gives you an understanding of when your busy periods are, so you can allocate staff accordingly. We can bake all of this into an insights dashboard, which you can see that's pre-baked of an operational efficiency dashboard. One last thing to show you from a reporting perspective is, let's say you wanted to create a dashboard. You can nest anywhere from 1 to 6 reports at any given time. So you select the template you may look at, and then you can add reports that may have been pre-built, or you can build one from scratch. It gives you complete flexibility to make wallboards that work for you. The last couple of things I wanted to show you was this menu on the left. So if I expand this menu on the left, there's 2 ways in which you can build a report. The first one is this plus with the square around it. So if you click on that, we've got a whole host of pre-baked reports that don't necessarily need editing, other than you deciding who you want to report on. But this is from our pedigree and experience in the market. So you can trust that these reports have been tried and tested. Or alternatively, if you're feeling a little bit braver and wanted to have a bit more of a hands-on experience, you can build a report completely from scratch, selecting the type of reports and then all of the more granular detail you may want to associate with that. And then just the very last thing that I wanted to leave you with is the presence dashboard, which is our latest addition. And this is almost like a very light receptionist style console, a great way in which within the Teams environment, you can get an understanding of who's available within your teams and who's not. You can use it on filters. So for example, I just want to look at the sales queue UK because I wanted to transfer a call to them. I can see who's available, who's away, and of course offline. And much like all of our other reports, this updates completely in real time. So you can have a true grasp of who's available and who's not. But from a presentation perspective, that was all I was hoping to show you today. I hope you can see the value that both call recording and call analytics can bring to you as a service provider and potentially you as an end customer to get more value out of your Microsoft Teams solution, which is really important, especially in a Microsoft Teams world, as we look to migrate from our old legacy systems, and there is gaps such as reporting and recording. If you do like what you've heard today or have seen today, I encourage you to either get in contact with your service provider account manager, or alternatively, if you don't know who they may be, feel free to reach out to Sippio, and you can reach them at sales@sippio.io, and we can absolutely review how we can support you in both of these product sets. But I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you. Bye-bye.